and we will have a great time talking about passwordless authentication. Uh, Today's agenda is that TechDemocracy has built a time-tested decision framework to evaluate various options of passwordless authentication, and we will walk you through that framework as well as when that framework is applied to various passwordless options. I am honored to be joined by Auth ID, and they will showcase their industry's leading biometric identity proofing based solution. Also honored to have Ubico join us to talk about their Ubico hardware authenticator solution. And then to wrap it all up, Ping Identity, we have Jason from Ping Identity. He's the VP of product management there, and he will talk about how heterogeneous passwordless authentication schemes can then be stitched together in end-to-end user journeys in the product from Ping called Ping DaVinci. Again, as I said, I'm honored to have a esteemed set of speakers with me. My name is Viresh Garg. I'm Senior Vice President of Emerging Technologies at TechDemocracy. I have around 22 years of experience in the area of cybersecurity and identity and access management. I've led identity management both from product side as well as consulting side. And my background includes work at Oracle, PwC, and Accenture, among other things. Jeff, can we please have you introduce yourself?
Hi, so Jeff Scheidel, pleasure to meet you. Varesh, thanks for having us. So going back a lot of years. So Jeff Scheidel, VP of Operations at Auth ID, about 40 plus years in identity and security. Written a lot of white papers and blogs, and even a book from McGraw-Hill on the topic. And so pleasure, very happy to have my career end up at Auth ID, where we do biometric authentication verification.
Thank you, Jeff. Bo, you want to go next?
Sure. Thanks, Varesh. Bo Anderson, Senior Solutions Engineer at Ubico. I have about 20 years in the IT industry, the last 4 being at Ubico, and looking forward to being able to share with the audience here our authentication solution.
Thank you so much, Bo. Jason, you want to go next?
Thanks, Varesh. Thanks to TechDemocracy for having me. I'm excited to be here. I'm a Vice President of Product Management at Ping Identity. I've been at Ping coming up on 6 years, been in identity around 12, and in enterprise software for around 30. So right now I look after our Ping One cloud platform that includes our DaVinci orchestration service.
Thank you so much, Jason. So let's start with our agenda. So let's start with, the passwordless decision framework that I talked about. I will talk to you for the next 16 or so minutes. And overall, my content is organized around 4 topics. Number 1, let's just very quickly recap why passwordless is very important. Just one slide on that. I'm going to walk you through our zero trust architecture framework as well as decision framework for passwordless options. Then, the decision framework that I would have introduced in part 2, I will have top 5 passwordless solutions sort of, weighed against that decision framework so that you will understand how we use that decision framework in various customer opportunities. And then I will summarize, the discussion with some of the services that we will be delighted to offer all of you guys from TechDemocracy. So let's start with why passwords are bad. I think some of this is very well known to you guys. I'm not going to speak through the whole slide, but I think some of the key things that come to my attention are, number 1, brute force was always a reality, but now with quantum computing and artificial intelligence, it's becoming a significant reality, in terms of, not even very sophistication, sort of in terms of attackers required, right? Even an average attacker can do the brute force attack now, right? Phishing continues to be a huge concern. Even the most tech-savvy users fall prey to phishing even now, right? And yeah, we know that the malware is everywhere, and when there are passwords, they are in secret. They're not in secret store. They are in code. They are in files. The hygiene is not there, and passwords are getting stolen from malware also. And these were all the security reasons. But most importantly, when you work with your consumers on the SIAM side, and I know that anytime a new website asks me to do registration again, and then wants me to, select a password, and then they have their own password rules of 16 characters and these special characters and not, that's friction to me, right? There have been numerous times when I decided to not register somewhere or not submit a shopping cart just because I didn't want to deal with another password. So it's not only a security concern, it is also impacting conversion in a big way. So, when it comes to, doing sort of overall security side of passwordless, we basically talk about, we recommend customers to set up a zero trust architecture that has 4 components, right? One, there should be a lot of security in the perimeter on the edge, right? Then you will have your passwordless authentication options. They should be complemented by risk-based authentication. And then as far as risk is concerned, the risk and detect and respond should also be looked into the post-auth area, right? So, you basically have 3 line of defenses. If I talk about multiple line of defenses in zero trust, you have your edge, you have your pre-auth checks, and you have your post-auth checks. And the most importantly, if you see down, the idea also that is emerging in a lot of TechDemocracy customers is to do bi-directional signal exchange between these lines of defenses. What are you seeing? What are you seeing, right? When they exchange their intelligence, they can enforce step up. They can aggregate the overall risk that is being seen into different islands. They can terminate sessions originating in each other, and they can continue to harden their rule library. Some of the things that you want to do in perimeter, I'll just take one example of each, is that you want to do rate limiting, and you want to prevent bad actors and bad IPs and bad geographies to be, coming into your network. That will come in the edge, right? Your phishing resistance, your credential stuffing resistance will come from your second layer, which is passwordless layer, right? Your location, time, device anomaly, activity anomalies, behavior anomalies, that will come from your risk-based layer. And then, of course, detecting, suspicious activities, issues, alerts, incidents, account takeover, events and things like that. And then going through an IR playbook to take care of them will come into detect and monitor, right? So this slide was basically showing that in each line of defense, what protection are you building? What kind of products do you deploy in each protection, right? You will have your firewalls, your API gateways, and your CDN, making up your edge layer. Your SSO, MFA product integrated with companies like YubiKey and Auth ID will come into your prevent layer, right? Which is your passwordless layer. Your adaptive authentication, which basically tracks user activity at login, and your solutions like CASB that then after login, take a look at every call, API call you are making, and trying to see the behavior of activities that you're trying to perform. All of that comes into your risk-based layer. And then your, SIM, SOAR, ITDR, XDR, etc., all the detect and response solutions will come into detect and monitor layer. So a lot of our customers are asking us not to implement passwordless, but to give them end-to-end authentication solution that conforms to the best practices of zero trust architecture. So I wanted to start by that. Now moving on to the TechDemocracy framework for passwordless decisions, right? So we basically look at, anytime you have to make a decision on what are the technologies that you want to adopt in your environment, right? First of all, you have to focus on, your regulatory landscape, your user personas, and your specific vertical, right? Once we understand those nuances of our customers, then we evaluate each technology in the catalog on 3 dimensions. Number one, security and compliance, right? How much AI attack resistance and phishing resistance is provided. How much protection is there for lost and stolen, credentials or credentials that were breached, and leaked, right? Compliance, many customers need FedRAMP and then PIPs and higher assurance levels, as defined in NIST come in, handy. Frictionless, very, very important, specifically in SIAM, right? How easy it is to set up, how easy it is to recover, or how easy it is to transfer from one device to another device if you lose the device, right? And then cost, is generally very important, for many customers because, you just can't be implementing something that is very costly for all of your users, especially in the consumer space where you may be dealing with millions of users, right? So basically, this is our triad, right? Security and compliance, on one dimension, user experience on other dimension, and cost of ownership on other dimension. We look at these three dimensions. We focus on a set of questions depending on your vertical, your regulatory landscape, and your user personas. And then we evaluate all technologies and give them a score, between 1 to 5 on each dimension. And that quantification is how we drive our customers to the decision of what passwordless options are best for them. So now in the next section, I will focus on the top 5 passwordless options that are typically chosen by customers, right? One of them is biometrics. And for the biometrics, there are so many different variations. What really bubbles up to top 5 is the client-side biometric, right? With FIDO, right? Not with password under the hooks, as I will talk about in the next slide. And we are honored to have Auth ID present their solution, as one of the top 5 there. Then we have hardware authenticators. They also work with FIDO, and many times they also have, biometrics embedded into it. And as I said, we are honored to have Yubico, who is the industry leader on hardware authenticators, to showcase their solution to us. Magic Links is another one that is becoming very popular. FIDO key on the device, it's a general FIDO key solution, right? Biometrics is one way of doing FIDO key on device, and hardware authenticator is another way, right? So basically FIDO keys on device, when I talk about that, I'm meaning to include other ways of doing FIDO keys on device that are not covered by either biometrics or hardware authenticator. And then there are push notifications. And then, some industry specific solutions are smart cards, QR codes, and OTP. Since I'm not covering those solutions in detail in my next slide, I'll just talk to one of them, just to give an idea. QR code, we work with a lot of retail customers, retail in their brick and mortar stores, in the back end, in the sort of rest area or in the break room. They generally have shared devices, where all of their temporary contractors or workers log on. It's a shared terminal. It's a shared device used by many people, right? So their QR code is becoming very popular, where you will get a code on your mobile device, and then you can do transfer from mobile to, shared device. And now you can work on shared device, and then you can transfer it back on your phone, right? So all of them have their own sweet spot. But the top 5 is what I will focus on now in my rest of my slides, right? So let's start with biometric. On the biometric, the best thing about biometric is that, you don't have anything to distribute to users. And, in the identity proofing based biometric, you typically will take a government issued document and you will have document validation. So there is no room for impersonation, right? Viresh cannot say that he is Jason. Viresh cannot register 100 times with, different names, right? So impersonation and sort of, flooding or DDoS kind of things are, best protected, when you're dealing with biometrics. At the same time, I know that, one of the things that I have seen is that anytime you want to take users' driver license or passport, although no matter how much education do you give users that, I'm not going to store those credentials in the back end, your private attributes are not going to leak, your document is not going to leak. There continues to be very high degree of skepticism on sharing those documents. From the cost perspective, we know that user onboarding and training cost is very minimum. But some vendors, can charge more for document support, and supporting multiple different documents. And, if you are doing proofing plus biometric enrollment, it can increase your initial registration cost. So that's my evaluation of biometric solution against our framework. Let's move on to hardware authenticator. The key thing that I want to highlight on hardware authenticators is that, when it comes to providing the highest level of assurance, right? As I said before, if you want FedRAMP, if you're working with federal government, you are going to need that higher level of assurance. And that's where they are a clear winner. They are industry's best solution when it comes to phishing resistance. But at the same time, security comes at a cost, right? So, there is a YubiKey, there is a key, right? There is a little device or a token or a dongle, whatever you want to call it, that you have to carry, right? And there is friction associated with carrying it. It may not be something that is very sustainable in consumer space. So there are some user experience minor issues, in just getting sort of, hand on the device, right? I go on vacation, I forgot to, take my, hardware authenticator with me, and I need emergency access. So there are those kind of scenarios that always come up. Magic links, very, very simple solution as far as passwordless is concerned. So, when it comes to sort of user experience, I think, it's very simple to use. You get a link, you click on the link, you are in, right? But at the same time, imagine a scenario where, if my identity is compromised, then I am assuming that my email addresses and my phone is also compromised, and I don't want to receive anything on my email and phone. So, that becomes a problem. And I again and again hear from customers that for whatever reason, these emails where magic links are delivered continue to be in the spam folder, right? So that is a concern. Magic links can be intercepted by man in the middle attack, right? Because they're being delivered through email or SMS, which are not very, very secure channels. So that is a big security concern. At the same time, on the cost of ownership, most SSO and MFA products are including this as a basic feature. It's not an add-on. So the cost associated with magic links is very, very small, right? So, they definitely win on the cost side. Push notifications, right? They are becoming increasingly more popular, as far as user experience is concerned. Users just tap approve, right? Or sometimes either they tap approve or they're given, like for example, you're seeing a number on your, where you're trying to log in and a number in an app and you click on number. It's very easy, intuitive experience as far as push notifications are concerned. But again, it means that you have to install an app, in which notifications will be pushed, and not everyone is comfortable installing those apps, especially on their mobile devices, when in the BYOD world, right? So there is that friction associated with it. And, just be mindful that whenever some of these options are used, without FIDO, right? Without a combination of private key and public key, where private key is securely stored on the client side, is involved, right? There is always the phishing risk, right? There is always a window where user entered something and it was intercepted by man in the middle. So I continue to, recommend on each slide that when it comes to all of these passwordless options, make sure that you're implementing the version, that has a solution like FIDO backing it up. And then, the last one is FIDO key on device. And as I said, we've pretty much talked about FIDO in each one of the previous solutions, because they all had some version of FIDO. I purposely wanted to have one slide just focused on FIDO, because the idea is that there can be so many different ways in which user gets to the private key on device, and then, the private key combination on device and public key is used, right? Which is not limiting to identity proofing or hardware authenticator. There can be n number of technologies used to use the FIDO solution. And this slide basically covers all of them together in a single bucket. So again, I refrain from rating overall solution, and giving anyone a 5-star or 4-star or 3-star. And the reason for that is because the exact rating of a solution will depend on your specific user personas, your specific compliance goals, your specific industry vertical, your specific use cases and priorities in terms of what is it that you're trying to achieve in security, usability and cost, and your specific implementation of zero trust architecture, right? If you're getting a lot of protection from other angles, then you may be able to make some compromises on phishing, on security side. So it depends on a lot of things. And, TechDemocracy will be very proud to help you guys understand your use cases and your scenario, and give you recommendations on what solution works best for you. But I wanted to highlight some solutions that are clear winners, right? So when it comes to consumer IAM, right, FIDO with client-side biometrics seems like a solution that has least resistance and least friction, and you can enable users quickly because you're not delivering anything, right? But when it comes to very, very high elevated access, for example, either for FedRAMP, I talked about that 5 times already on this call, or admin access, your DevOps engineers, your security analysts, your privileged users, right? All of them using hardware authenticator is a clear winner. We are seeing a lot of traction, in those high risk areas for hardware authenticators. Sometimes hardware authenticators may not be available, or there is a broad spectrum compromise of a user's device or identity or something like that. And a new re-enrollment using biometrics could be a quick way to enable those users for emergency access or quick access. As far as the cost efficiency is concerned, I talked about magic links and push notifications are generally built into the authentication platforms now and does not need an add-on product. So they are the most cost efficient. I talked about shared terminal use case for retail. I work with a lot of retail customers where that use case is there, and the QR code is something which is very popular there, right? Government, military, a lot of them use smart cards. Smart card is also sometimes used for point of sales in retail, right? So, I just wanted to kind of highlight that, there are some clear winners, where, it will be no brainer to use this solution. But for other solutions, I highly recommend customers to use our framework, and do the evaluation against security, user experience, and cost, and then make a more informed decision on that, which are the top 2 or 3 options that they want to pick out of the catalog available for passwordless. Moving on, we are very proud at TechDemocracy to be helping you guys on advisory services. I gave some examples in terms of choosing passwordless options, building a business case for it, etc. We do provide both implementation as well as operations and managed services on access management. So, we would be very proud to be helping you guys in any of your advisory, implementation, or operational needs on access management. We are very proud of the alliances that we have built, some of them that stand out. Ping, we'll get a demo of Ping DaVinci today. AuthID, leading provider in biometrics, I talked about them, Ubico. And then you see some other ones, like Hyper and Transmit Security, etc., that are becoming very popular and up and coming on access management. So we have a very, very rich set of alliances to bring a complete access management solution for all of your B2E, B2B, and SIAM needs. And we continue to build new alliances as we are moving forward. So just calls to action. Please reach out to us. I have given some email addresses: zerotrustarchitecture@techdemocracy.com, passwordless@techdemocracy.com, solutions@techdemocracy.com. We are right now offering one-on-one free workshops, for any of your needs. How would the architecture and roadmap work, evaluation of options that I talked about, vendor selection, and things like that. So we would love to hear from you. And I will conclude my section here. Thank you so very much. Very excited now for Jeff to be presenting AuthID solution now. Jeff, go ahead. All yours.
Thank you. Thanks again, Varesh and TechDemocracy team, for having us. So we're AuthID, leader in biometric onboarding and authentication. So day 0 and day 1 and beyond. We've built a significant ecosystem of technology and sales partners, as you can see here, and folks like TechDemocracy who align beautifully with our mission, which is to always assure our customers of who is behind every device that is attempting to access their digital assets. Okay, sir. Good. The company's comprised of a number of longtime identity experts. And I think they're like myself, folks like Varesh, who've been in the space for literally decades. The company's been around for years, always based on biometric solutions, where users provide a biological signal in order to prove their identity. We started out helping with elections in other countries under the banner of the U.S. federal government to ensure that voters only registered once and voted once, and then branched out from there to the private sector as well. We provided various modalities, but we've kind of settled on facial biometrics as the standard. Voice cloning has kind of made that approach very vulnerable in the market. And the most ubiquitous manufacturers of personal devices stopped supporting fingerprints, unfortunately. So yes, fraudsters are always trying to fake faces, whether it's stolen images or completely fabricated ones through AI and other means. It's our job to ensure that any biometric signals provided belongs to a very real and very live person. Next, sir. So in the identity space, we talk about zero trust. By default, I don't trust you. I want to, but I need to verify every touch of the system. So we want to eliminate fraud completely and protect the enterprise. And in the end, we want to provide only the right people, the right access at the right time. Okay. So we provide 2 essential functions. So let's start with day 0. I don't know who you are yet. So we have proof for onboarding and Auth proof. So users provide a government-issued ID along with a selfie. We perform dozens of checks in that ID to make sure it's real, it's not tampered with, that it's legit. We compare the barcode or MRZ data with the printed information on the front when applicable. We ensure that barcode is produced in the way that that particular state or province actually does barcodes. They don't all follow the same format. And we make sure it's being presented live, not a picture, not a screenplay, not a deep fake. Then the selfie, presented live. Again, not a picture, a video, a deep fake. Then compare that selfie with the image on the document. So the document's good, and you're good together. And we use that to create a biometric root of trust. So then on day one and beyond, we invoke verified, which leverages a biometric root of trust every time the returning user comes back to authenticate, and they only have to use their face. This eliminates the need for passwords. And when a user needs to perform a high-risk transaction, or for example, if passwords are still in the mix someplace and need to be reset, or you're doing some kind of high-value, high dollar amount transaction, for example, that function can be secured with a facial biometric. It's that last mile, can't repudiate it. With facial biometrics and fraud detection, we are preventing account takeover in the first place. In the event there's another backdoor, such as when passwords are still in place someplace, or if a user has allowed their access to expire, they can use just their face to recover that access in a way that, again, cannot be repudiated or duplicated by anybody else. We support FIDO as well, with a great solution for acquiring and recovering passkeys. And in fact, you can use your facial biometric to unlock that passkey. One more thing, no app to download. It's real-time injection into your browser. It's a WebAssembly. It's very lightweight. So no authenticator app to download in advance. We're utterly device independent. Right, sir? So there are many ways fraudsters attack. They present a phony face, whether it's a spoof or an actual face or completely fabricated one, trying to register, for example, an AI generated image. They can do the same thing with fake IDs. Presentation attack is just that. I present a fake to the camera. That's simple, okay? Whether it's a picture or video replay, whatever it is. Some people still try to use masks to imitate the geometry of an actual face, using the distance between all the points in your face. There are also injection attacks, which we see more often than ever, where a criminal tries to bypass detection, liveness detection, for example, at the camera by injecting their images behind the camera. We counter these first off with the most advanced liveness detection in the market. We ensure it's a real person in real time in front of the camera. We use passive liveness, meaning we don't make the user blink and smile and spin their head around. Anybody can take a still image off of LinkedIn or Facebook or anything and make it do all those movements. So we perform well beyond the NIST standard for liveness detection using only a capture. We ensure that any images that arrive on the back end originated from the expected device and camera without injection, without any malware or virtual devices. If data shows up at the server without that gold star, as it were, it's rejected. We're tops at detecting deepfakes. We analyze all the visible and invisible aspects of an image. Pretty much any child with free or cheap software can produce fakes. We apply advanced detection, prevent them from getting through. We do very detailed deepfake workshops, by the way, all the time to show how easy it is for bad guys to create and launch deepfake attacks. It's pretty scary stuff. We also show how to detect them and how to prevent them from getting a foothold in the first place. All right, sir. So the top two reasons companies are hesitant to use biometrics are, first of all, compliance. Storing biometric data, like facial images, is usually a no-no, although there's plenty of players out there that still do it. Even storing just the geometry of the face, like the distance between eyes, nose, chin, and so on, is considered in plenty of jurisdictions to be that's biometric data. I'm in Illinois, where we have the BIPA law. It's the toughest one in the country. You've got specific laws in Massachusetts, California, Texas, got GDPR over in the continent, and others. Second is user adoption. Users don't want to opt into an environment where their data, especially their biometric images, are at risk. So we solve both concerns by not storing biometrics, and we've never done that. We opt for encrypted hashes of the face, but in the last year, we've added privacy key, in which we use the facial image to generate a public and private key pair at onboarding time, leveraging established PKI technology, and everybody knows what that is. We immediately discard the private key and we store only the public key, which again cannot be reverse engineered into any kind of biometric. Nothing is stored on the user's device at all. This means, by the way, you can register on one device and authenticate on another. You lose your device, upgrade, whatever, bring your face and you're back in business. Remember, I said we're device independent in terms of the app and the keys to your access. When you authenticate, you come back, we generate a new private key from your face and perform a handshake with the public key using an encrypted signature to validate it's you coming back and you're in. And then we discard the private key again. And once again, nothing is stored on the device. We can also rotate or revoke a public key and make people either re-enroll or that's when it's time to terminate that account. All right, sir. So we get asked all the time, how do you regenerate that matching private key each time? What if I take my original picture in the sunlight outside, then I come back to log in from my kitchen indoors? We focus on those many aspects of a face that don't change even with time. You know, wearing glasses or not, you grow a beard, you put on or you lose weight. There are many points on the face that never change. So we can verify you again and again over time under different conditions to ensure that you don't lose your access. All right. So things like Apple ID and other things like that are device bound. They aren't really security. They're just a convenience to get you into your phone or your laptop. The root of trust is still a username and or a particular device. We bind the identity to the facial biometric. So I'm free of a specific device and I can access my assets online without a particular phone, without a password, again, using my face on whatever device once I'm registered. Okay. So we strive to provide the user and the enterprise with the best performance. So process a new identity in under 700 milliseconds. Authenticate an existing user is coming back to authenticate in under 25 milliseconds. Be the best in biometric accuracy, a false match rate of 1 in a billion, meaning we're not going to match you with somebody you're not. Nobody else can be you. But it's not just about fraud. We want good people to access their online assets and sites. We want to convert the goods to make it as easy and intuitive as possible. Through our own brandable interface, we also provide APIs and SDKs so organizations can make us part of their infrastructure. We can be configured as an IDP inside a provider such as Ping. We cover now almost 15,000 documents around the world that we can validate by way of that. Our service is entirely automated, no manual review, no boiler room of strangers looking at your documents, ease of use for end users as well as the companies that host them and integrate them. No other vendor provides its sub-second performance, the accuracy, and the total security around compliance and user privacy that we do. All right, sir. We are certified by third parties for eliminating bias, so we're as accurate as we can be for all facial types across nationalities, which is a problem for many providers, which is why we've replaced competitors in other countries, including, again, very recently in Asia. All right, sir. We service dozens of customers across a variety of verticals, including an international philanthropic organization operating in many countries, a variety of financial institutions and fintechs, various workforce and human capital management companies. We help with healthcare certifications, gaming, lending, a number of industries. So we're talking here about consumers as well as employees to ensure that only the right people access consumer products as well as sensitive internal functions. All right, sir. And finally, what's the value proposition we're providing? Speed. I'm going to get people onboarded and get them to their digital destination as quickly and as frictionlessly as possible. No passwords, no hassle, no authenticators, just their face. Free of fraud, free of impersonation, free of deepfakes. The enterprise is confident of who's behind the device. The user is confident that their digital stuff is safeguarded. It's got to be accurate. You and only you are the right person behind that device, and nobody else gets access to your stuff. The user experience has to be intuitive, easy, even for the least tech-savvy individuals. And we have to protect user privacy while supporting compliance requirements from around the world. We protect the enterprise, we protect the user, and by always assuring both parties of who's behind the device. So thank you for your time. Thank you, Varesh. Back to you, sir.
Thank you so much, Jeff. Yeah, I mean, some things that I just want to recap on, something that I get asked again and again. Many customers, business users say that we are already using Touch ID, we are already using Face ID, we are already using Android biometric. So why do we need, a solution like Auth ID? And, it takes a lot of education to tell them that that's just a convenience. There is still a password involved. You're still not phishing resistance, and you're still not, secure, from, a lot of account takeover attacks, right? And, the other fact that I just want to recap on, Jeff, is that, AuthID is a leading provider, and if your choice is to use another solution, just make sure that you're never choosing a solution that deals with server-side biometrics. In addition to all the compliance things that Jeff talked about, it's just a nightmare to store them, to secure them, to adhere to all privacy and confidentiality concerns, and to deal with them, when there is a breach, right? A lot of private attributes, maybe they can be changed, but your biometrics cannot be changed. So if it is stolen, it is stolen permanently, right? So, server-side biometrics is a big no-no. So I just wanted to recap on some of those things. Jeff, I want to thank you for walking us through AuthID. And now let's have Bo walk us through industry's leading hardware authenticator solution, Ubico. All yours, Bo.
Great, thank you, Varesh. So I'm excited to introduce everyone to Ubico today and to talk about how we're helping to shape a more secure passwordless future. And so over the next few minutes, I'm going to walk you through who we are and how we enable phishing-resistant authentication. So next slide, please. So founded in 2007, the name Ubico was inspired by the word ubiquity, with the idea to make a device that would ubiquitously work across all platforms, operating systems, and services to protect your digital identity. And from the very beginning, our vision has been clear. We want to make the internet safer for everyone. And in order to realize that vision, our founders invented the YubiKey and co-invented the FIDO authentication standards. And today, these standards are built into virtually every platform, operating system, and web browser, just as we had envisioned. Next. And, we need this more than ever. We regularly continue to see intrusions and data breaches in the news. And the truth is that stolen credentials are the #1 security challenge. And these breaches end up costing these companies millions of dollars as a result. These are only a few examples of the many breaches that I'm sure you all have been aware of. Next. And in fact, research has shown that over 80% of breaches are a direct result of stolen passwords, and the number of attacks have surged 75% since 2023. And these attackers are not slowing down. With an average cost of almost $5 million per incident in 2024, the cost of these attacks is expected to rise by over 20% this year. Attackers are now leveraging AI tools using machine learning and malware as a service to attack your company. And this can be devastating for small to medium businesses. This study that's shown here from Verizon found that over 60% of SMBs were forced to close within 6 months of a breach. And so it is imperative that we stop these attackers. Next, Fresh. So with over 35 million YubiKeys sold to over 5,000 enterprises, you can trust Ubico to be your strategic partner. We will enable you to completely eliminate credential theft and give you a significant return on investment through reduced support incidents. Not to mention, you'll have a lot of happy customers who are always able to easily authenticate and focus on what they do best and not on trying to get into their machine. Our proven technology works with over 1,000 different products and is scalable to meet your business needs. Next. And here are the YubiKeys. The YubiKey is a hardware-backed authenticator that is available in multiple form factors, including USB-A, USB-C, and NFC, as well as biometric. We're manufactured in the US and Sweden, and our keys are extremely durable and built to last. I've been to a few conferences over the years, and just about every conference I attend, I hear a story about how YubiKey went through the washing machine multiple times, was ran over by a car, eaten by a dog, or even went scuba diving. And these keys all still work. And not only do they allow you to eliminate passwords from your FIDO-enabled applications, the YubiKey also works with multiple authentication protocols in order to support a wide range of legacy systems that are still in use. Just like the keys on your keyring, the YubiKey will protect your organization from phishing attacks. Next slide. So we frequently see organizations get started by securing privileged users, as well as YubiKeys in mobile environments such as call centers. And as they start to see the ROI from YubiKeys, additional use cases follow and can eventually cover the entire organization. Some specifics there include shared workstations, remote and in-office workers, and even securing third-party access and your end customers. We designed the YubiKey to protect everyone, and as I'll show a little bit later in the presentation, we've achieved some success in a lot of different verticals. Next, please. In fact, a recent study conducted by the research firm Forrester found that YubiKeys offer an ROI of 203% with payback in 11 months on average, all while dramatically blocking phishing attempts. They also found that companies on average experienced a 75% reduction in password-related help desk tickets and over 17,500 hours saved by their end users not having to type in or recover from lost passwords over a 3-year period. The ROI from this alone is significant, and some key solutions that Yubico offers help to play a large role in realizing these ROI benefits. Next. So a big way in which we provide that quick ROI is through our YubiKey as a service offering. So with a lower cost of entry, flexible choice of form factors, replacement inventory, and professional services, we've seen faster rollouts and quicker results. Many of our customers especially appreciate the flexibility of being able to offer a choice of form factor to their users rather than force a single form factor or to try to figure out in advance what quantities and connections they need to order. With YubiKey as a service, we focus on future-proof flexibility for faster rollouts. Next. And an important component of a faster rollout is being able to get those keys that you've ordered quickly into the hands of your users. And this is where our UB Enterprise delivery service can play a valuable role, as we handle shipping and delivery management through an easy-to-use console so that you can focus on your business and not on shipping out YubiKeys. We can ship to over 150 countries, including tracking and delivery notifications that can be customized with your organization's branding. And we can also integrate with your existing ITSM platform using our API. So this has enabled customers of all sizes to roll out YubiKeys quickly and easily. And you don't have to take our word for it. Let's go to the next slide and look at T-Mobile. So T-Mobile is a great success story for us. They had seen a dramatic escalation of phishing attempts and threats against their employees. Deploying YubiKeys to the entire organization, including a retail and remote workforce, they eliminated passwords and one-time passcodes and created 200,000 phishing-resistant users in a record amount of time. Next. So in addition to T-Mobile, we also worked with an extremely large financial customer who was battling targeted spear phishing campaigns against their corporate clients. We worked with them to integrate FIDO2 authentication with YubiKeys into their platform and eliminated account takeover attacks. They are now evaluating moving this to the next phase for consumer clients. And finally, next. Last but not least, we worked closely with Hyatt to provide a user-friendly solution for frontline staff to not only secure their access, but provide faster access at the registration desk so that they could better support their guests. At the same time, they secured all PII and cardholder data, and they moved their employees to passwordless authentication. Next. So finally, the bottom line, Passwordless is here. Yubico and YubiKeys deliver unbeatable protection with a fast experience that users love. I appreciate your time. Thank you. Back to you, Varesh.
Thank you so much, both. That was an amazing presentation. Great job. I was blown away with, all these customer case studies. In fact, very recently, you talked about 203% ROI, and you also talked about one of that regional bank case study. I had the privilege of meeting the gentleman who owns access management at that bank, at your booth at RSA conference. And I was just blown away. You're talking about 203%. I think the way he shared some of the intel confidentially with me, right? With that spear phishing attack that you were talking about, the numbers that he was sharing, I think the ROI was in the range of 200 to 300% for that one customer. So I was completely blown away to see that how implementing passwordless solution for their commercial clients, and eliminating the exploit of spear phishing their commercial clients, right? eliminated the financial fraud in their environment significantly, right? So it's just amazing to see, what kind of ROI YubiKey is delivering to your customers, and we are very proud to be your alliance partner or implementation partner. Now the next section is we talked about a few passwordless solutions. So this journey, right? Let's say you want to use a combination of biometric and and hardware authenticator. Then you're gonna need a platform where you will stitch end-to-end user journeys, where you will present a catalog to your users in terms of what passwordless options do they want to use, right? I'm really proud to have Jason from Ping Identity joining me. He's the Vice President of Product Management, as he said, for Ping DaVinci. Many customers that I talk to assume that Ping DaVinci is a solution to build user journeys by using only the passwordless options that are provided by Ping. And the reason I requested Jason to join today was to specifically highlight that no matter what solution did you choose, for example, today we heard from Auth ID and Yubico, and if those are the solutions that you have chosen for your passwordless solution, you can still orchestrate end-to-end user journeys for registration, account management, login, unlocking, and things like that on Ping DaVinci. So over to you, Jason, to enlighten us on how Ping DaVinci can be the orchestration platform, even if your passwordless choices are heterogeneous.
Yeah, thanks, Varesh. And Bo, I can just say that even at Ping, as Varesh, to make your point, Ping about Ping being open, I have one or two of those authenticators I saw on your slide in my bag right now to access some of our higher security stuff here at Ping. So thanks everybody. I do want to pivot, as Varesh mentioned. I want to step away from the specific authentication methods, which are super important in our passwordless journey, but talk about how we bring passwordless together and actually bring it to life. So we can go to the next slide. And really, at Ping, we recognize that it's not just about the authentication device or method, but it is about the end-to-end journey and the experience you're creating for users. So if we think about, and we can go to the next slide, if we think about what we're trying to do for our users, if it's in a customer identity management, for example, it starts with customer acquisition. How can we create a great experience for them to make them want to register and then come back for more? And if it's for a workforce use case, it might start at interview and go through onboarding and then come back to your daily login experience. But the reality is the journey doesn't necessarily look this clean, because if you look behind the scenes, and if you go to the next slide, there's a lot of vendors and complexity that quickly build up when you think of all the things that you need to incorporate into making that journey both simple and secure, and feed the systems going out or data feeding into your journey. So we can go to the next slide. And this becomes really, really complex for your teams to manage. It takes a lot of time to implement, and your teams are working on these integrations instead of innovating. And so that's what we're going to try to work on here. So if we go to the next slide, our goal is to take all of that complexity and put it on and actually make that journey as simple as we picture it in our minds when we start these projects. So we can go to the next slide. So, and that's what DaVinci is designed to do. So what I want to talk about today, we go to the next slide again. We're going to talk about how leveraging DaVinci can help you spend your money more wisely, move more efficiently, and move your teams back to innovating instead of maintaining custom integrations. And I think Varesh brought up a really important point. Ping, people think that Ping and DaVinci, and if they are aware of DaVinci, think it only works with Ping as the identity provider or Ping as the authentication provider. And that's like the opposite of what Ping is from our founding. From our founding, Ping Federate, the first Ping product, was built on open standards and avoiding vendor lock-in. And DaVinci carries that forward to the next generation of capabilities. So when we think about these three goals that we have for DaVinci when we build it, we can go forward actually 2 slides because the next one's a header. When we think about where we spend our money, these integrations, they cost us a lot of money. And every one of these integrations we are spending a lot of our resource and time maintaining. So we can go to the next slide, actually. The average company spends over $4.5 million per year just maintaining these integrations. And this is for a MuleSoft survey. And so when you think about that cost and trying to get rid of that, what are your options? And for DaVinci, the way we do that, we go to the next slide. We have three areas here that we'll focus on, that we'll touch on briefly, of where DaVinci can help reduce that cost. So instead of custom coding API to API integrations all the time, we go to the next slide. DaVinci starts by providing out-of-the-box templates with these integration patterns already in place with best practices of security and usability, that you can easily swap out the things that make sense for your business. But we start you out of the box so that you're halfway there by the time you get started. And then you build on that and we can go to the next slide. With the central integration as a service model, you're not building anything from scratch, because you're integrating all your tools along your journey. And we can go to the next one. And we're using out of the box connectors for this. So we have over 3,000 connection points out of the box in DaVinci, covering the most common connection points that our customers use to the vendors that they use the most for each of these things. So this is saving you a tremendous amount of money because you're not spending those resources. And tied to that, we can go 2 slides forward, is that goes faster, right? Less money, less time for your resources, whether it's internal or external resources doing your engineering. We want to go faster and more cost effectively. So if you see this version of that same slide, you see all those red X's, and we can click one more and see that what happens there is we started, and even if we got there, well, our fraud tool maybe is less effective, or we found there's a new type of fraud that it doesn't catch, and we need to integrate a second or third or fourth fraud tool. That's months of integration. Adding a new passwordless service or an authentication, passwordless authenticator might take us a few months to go through and integrate and move out. So all of this costs time in our organization and reduces our flexibility. In fact, these are so impactful that 29% of IT projects are late, almost a third. And this is 3% over the year before, according to the same survey. So IT projects are slowing down, and we're trying to speed them up. So let's go to the next slide. And so what does DaVinci do with that? Again, it comes down to, we can click quickly to the next slide as well. It amounts to connecting to the services you need, no matter where they are. This is just a sample of some of the partners, where in this case, we're talking about registration and recovery, that we connect to, and out-of-the-box connectors for those. And if we go to the next one, if we talk specifically about Passwordless, two of the key vendors are Yubico and AuthID that work directly with DaVinci and with so that you can get out of the box, you can get these implemented up and running and into your journey more quickly. And the third piece of this on the next slide is about your fraud prevention. There's multiple fraud services out there, and for your business, 1, 2, or more of these make more sense than some others. So we find that a lot of customers are doing defense in depth by adding multiple of these fraud vendors, because they have different data sets that they focus on and do a better, so they can detect and prevent various kinds of fraud. So when you integrate these with your authenticators, you're preventing a bunch of fraud up front, but we're, again, not deciding which one. We're allowing you to easily add or subtract the ones that make sense for your business. And so we do all this in a drag and drop interface. And there's a short video here, and I won't let it play all the way, but I'll just show you when I talk about this in the abstract. In here, we have a journey that was already started for me. In this case, they added Bamboo HR. They're going to add CrowdStrike. You can build this journey out. You can test it in this interface, and then all before you decide to deploy it. And we can click forward. So the last piece is, as you make those changes, it's important for you to be able to track those changes, roll back quickly. So with our version control, if you happen to put something into an environment and it didn't work as you expected, you can easily roll back to the previous version. For every DaVinci workflow you have, we save 100 versions that you can roll back to really, really quickly. And so we can go forward. The last of the three things we talked about where DaVinci tries to help is getting you back to innovation and getting you away from just maintaining API integration. So if we go forward to the next one, introducing new technology into an organization is hard. It's hard on the technical teams. It's hard on organizational management. It can be difficult across the organization in a number of ways. So with DaVinci, similar to before, this is another area where we've been focused on. And so we click forward here. And so as we think about innovation, there's three areas I want to talk about here on innovation and how we help you innovate. And so if we go to the next one, first of all is analytics and dashboard. How many of my users, if we made passwordless optional, how many of them registered and signed up for password? How many have not? How many people have successfully executed a journey? How many people abandoned before getting through the registration process? How many people actually, filled their shopping cart and didn't buy? Those kinds of analytics are super important to your business. And so we can break all of that down. We provide all of that data, and you can use our dashboards or export it into your tools to do further analysis and understanding where people are getting stuck, where your users are being successful. And we can go to the next one. We showed you really briefly that you can see the flows in real life to help you visualize what path your users are taking. And we give you analytics on how many people got to each branch in the path. And we can go forward one more. And one of the key capabilities that we have is to, as you implement, you can A/B test. So if you want to implement two different experiences and you want to send 10% one way and 90% another, maybe you're trying that first one, or 50-50, and you can have your users split up like that so that you can then go analyze who's converting more effectively, who's reducing their time to authentication, their time to register, all of those things along the journey. And not only that, but you can break down your users into cohorts to have potentially thousands of brands that all use one journey with the proper experience for them, all branded for the way that they need it. For example, we have a customer who works with artists, musical artists, and every artist has their own page. So you go to your favorite artist's page, you see their branding. So think of the number of artists, but that's all built on a common DaVinci flow that's allowing them to create the experience for that user based on attributes of that user, knowing who they're a fan of, and when they go to that page. And so we could go forward two more slides, and it's my last couple of, I have three more slides here after this one. When you think about migrating to passwordless, it starts with choosing the right authentication, absolutely. And both Jeff and Bo showed you some really great passwordless authentication options that, depending on your business, one or both of those probably make sense. But when you think about building the passwordless journey and getting there, look at the roadblocks that your IT team's going to have. First of all, you're probably going to have some fraud prevention tools. Is it one tool? And the integration might take months, so you only do one tool because it's so expensive to implement. Are you going to try to do A/B testing, or do you have to abandon it because you don't have the flexibility to add that? And then your migration, how much flexibility do you have in who to migrate, what customer cohorts or user cohorts to migrate, when and under what circumstances to passwordless? Are you going to do an opt-in, or are you going to do a force? All of those questions come to light. And so we go to the next slide. And what DaVinci's trying to do is make all of those options more possible, more flexible for you and your organization. So we can go to my last slide here, and I'll just close by saying that all of this is really trying to reduce the impact on your teams getting you to actual value of folks like AuthID and Yubico and realizing the value of those investments faster. And it doesn't rely on any other ping technology if you choose other technologies. And Varesh, that's everything I have.
Well, thank you, Jason. I want to conclude, your section with a personal story, right? My son is also, I'm very proud of him, in the access management. He's an access management consultant. He was using another company's product for orchestrating passwordless for one of the customer he's working with. And he and I have this kind of, challenge between us. Sometimes when he's stuck, he tries to take my help and I want to show him who is the daddy. But this particular time, he really humbled me because, this other product, uses very, very complicated code and scripting to orchestrate passwordless. And I could not diagnose the issue for 2 days. And then I was humbled because he could diagnose it. Well, it was his code, so it was easier for him to diagnose. But the long story short is that, when I saw the experience with Ping DaVinci, the drag and drop experience, it's, as a consulting company, as much as I would love to have more complicated flow and longer statement of works to deploy, the truth of the matter is that, the special thing about DaVinci is that, compared to other products, elimination of coding and scripting and drag and drop really, really, truly adds value when it comes to time to market this passwordless option. So I really want to congratulate you, Jason, on focusing on drag and drop more than scripting and coding and enabling us and customers to be, to deliver quick wins on passwordless, when orchestrated on this technology. Thank you, Jason. I want to thank all of my speakers. Jason, Bo, Jeff, thank you so much for partnering with me and giving customers options for passwordless. In the interest of my time, I will go back to Rashmi, who's our moderator, who has been taking questions from audience, and we will, time permitting, we'll try to answer as many questions as we can. So, Rashmi, over to you for questions.
Thank you, Varesh. So yes, we do have one question right now. I'm not sure. It's asked by Vishal. It states that after you suggesting to remove passwords and use 2FAs and other password options, this is his question.
I'm not sure, Rashmi, if I understand the question. Maybe he can type his question again. In the meantime, can you go to the next question? I didn't understand what was the question and it was directed to whom.
After you suggesting to remove passwords and use 2FAs and other password options is his question. So we are suggesting to remove passwords and two-factor authentications.
Well, we are definitely suggesting eliminating passwords completely. Sometimes that journey is hard for deeply, a dependency on some of the legacy platforms where passwords are a must. So I think we generally suggest that if you can go from password to passwordless, you most definitely should. Additionally, if you can't, then you should start the journey with multi-factor so that there is another factor involved, that makes it more phishing resistance. Even if password is stolen, there is another factor involved. And then even if you go passwordless, until the passwordless solution itself is using multiple technologies. For example, if you look at YubiKey, they have, you have biometric, to scan, because you put your finger scan on YubiKey and then, you have FIDO built into it, right? So, similarly, when AuthID was talking about it, right, they've got, identity proofing done, then there is a private key generated. So there is sort of FIDO, built into it, and there is, biometric scan at login. So many of the passwordless solutions already, within them provide, good amount of phishing resistance. But again, it's a case-by-case decision that when you go for passwordless, are you going to use only one passwordless solution, or are you going to challenge the customer with 2 passwordless to make it even more secure? It depends on case by case, but most definitely the journey should start with introducing 2-factor and then slowly eliminating passwords from modern, followed by legacy, and then evaluating if one passwordless is enough or you want to provide multiple passwordless options. Next question, Rashmi.
Okay, so the next question is what happens if I lose hardware authentication? Bo, will you like to take this question?
Sure, thanks, Rashmi. So, it's an interesting question because we do see this a lot, and our default answer is really just to make sure that you don't lose it, right? But if that's, obviously we're all going to lose things, right? And so we like to recommend, if you are concerned about losing your YubiKey, that you consider having a second YubiKey as a backup. Pretty much any service is going to allow you to register multiple hardware authenticators. So you could register multiple YubiKeys. That way you have another one that you can use in the case that your primary one gets lost or for some reason were to not work for you at any particular case. But we recommend safeguarding your keys as you would, your credit cards and any other valuables, and you would want to make sure that you keep track of them, but have a backup just in case something were to happen.
Thank you, Bo. And I think, Rashmi, what I want to add is these are the kind of things where, it's not only about vendor solution, right? When a company like TechDemocracy gets involved, then it's about people, process, and technology. And, we help a lot of customers on end-to-end process for registration, shipment, tracking, lost or stolen keys or devices. So it's another area where a solution sometimes depends on the specific use cases and specific scenarios. And we will also be very proud to be involved with customers to have them design the specific processes that go beyond a certain technology for their need. Next question, Rashmi.
Okay, so the next question is what happens if I lose device I have used for enrollment and registration?
That it seems like that's a solution question for Jeff in Auth ID. So I guess, Jeff, the question is that if you enrolled using a device and then you lost that device, then what happens?
Yeah, so we bind the identity to the user's face to start with. We're completely device agnostic. So you can register on one device. In fact, it's most common to register with a phone because it's easiest to take pictures. It's hard to take a picture of like your ID in the front and the back with a laptop camera, and it's a little lower res. So most people register the first time with a phone. Don't have to, but it's the easiest thing ergonomically. Then you authenticate later on either a phone or a laptop. So you absolutely don't have to use the same device again. And because we all end up upgrading our phones. For example, I know people who stand in line every time a new iPhone comes out. They get in line, which is crazy and expensive, but they do that. I think, okay, now I have to download another authenticator app, whatever it is? Nope. Got my phone. I go to the right website. I don't need to download anything. I've got my new device. I use my face, and I'm in. And there's nothing to download. It's real time. But the idea is not to be a slave to your device, which can be stolen. We even see stories where people acquire the people's phones and install their own biometric on their own face on it. In this case, doesn't matter if they do that. They're not stealing your face, and they can't fake it. So the idea is to not be tied to that device whatsoever.
Thank you. And I think, Jeff, I want to add that's a key differentiator from Face ID, and Touch ID, etc., right? Because in those cases, if someone is able to change the authentication to device, right, then they are able to, get on the website. But in your case, they will not be able to, the hash will not match and it will just never work. So there's a key difference. It's, those solutions are not only convenience, but they are, prone to attacks when the devices are stolen or lost. I wanted to just highlight that. Next question, Rashmi.
Okay, so the next question is for Jason. Jason can take that, I guess. It's about compare design and development time DaVinci for registration and account management flow.
Yeah, so I think that if I understand the question, it's kind of getting at like, how is DaVinci, how much time does it save me if I'm an engineer to build a flow in DaVinci for registration or account management versus if I have to code it with APIs. And so what we see in DaVinci typically is your first flow will take a couple of days because you're ramping up on what DaVinci does in that platform. So that could take 2 to 3, usually less than a work week for sure. And then after that, your changes and updating that flow are just minutes typically, compared to what is typically like a multi-month project when you're talking about end-to-end getting a new API integrated. So we can get that up and ready to test your first one in less than a week, and then after that, it's minutes before you have it, or minutes and hours before you have it into testing. So it's pretty stark difference we see in DaVinci versus custom coding and flow.
Awesome. We are already 9 minutes over time. Maybe we can take one last question if there is any, Rashmi. And before you take that question, I want to thank everyone for joining. I want to thank my speakers. And as I said, we are excited to be working with Ping, AuthID, and Yubico, and many other vendors in the area of access management and passwordless authentication. And it will be our privilege to work with all of you guys, in your access management journey, whether it is for workforce, your partners, or your SIAM use cases. So I look forward to hearing back from you. But before we wrap it up, Rashmi, if there is one more question, I think we can take one more and then we can wrap it.
There are a couple more. Jason Griffiths would like to know that can AuthID use any webcam connected to a PC or thin client?
Can it be used any thin client? So yes, we can use any. That's correct. Any device, that any camera. Now you prefer a high res as possible, because you want to be able to detect that it's an actual person. But yes, we can, and we're also and at the time that of a proof and authentication, we are validating that camera is the proper camera to connect to the application. And then it's not being used to sub in basically to get around, for example, liveness detection.
Okay, we have one last question. Would we like to take that, Paresh?
Yeah, let's quickly take that, Rashmi. If there is just one more.
Yeah, so the question is, our organization is currently using YubiKeys as a form of two-factor authentication in addition to passwords, because we were concerned with the security risk of passkeys in the event that the physical device be confiscated or lost. My question is, what options would you suggest for smaller businesses, less than 20 users, that are interested in passwordless but have those concerns?
Bo, would you like to take that?
Sure. So, using YubiKeys as a start to get you into, on that road to passwordless is a great step forward already. You did mention that you're using in addition to passwords. So, that is a use case that we still see quite a bit, where users are using YubiKeys as a second factor MFA against passwords. We would encourage customers to look at a solution that would allow them to move completely away from passwords. And even a small organization could leverage partners like Ping, to be able to move move your guys' platform over to an identity provider that would allow you to completely eliminate passwords, and also work as, let's say, a single sign-on portal for your additional web-based applications. And a lot of solutions that we've talked about on this webinar and other places can definitely scale even down to small organizations.
Yeah, no, thank you, Bo. And I completely agree, right? Once you have invested into such a, security hardened solution as YubiKey, right? It's time to eliminate password, right? They come with the complexity of storing them correctly, right? Protecting them correctly, salting them, then, having password recovery, self-service or help desk based. People always forget their passwords. People are always worried they may have used the same password somewhere else. So now some other site got hacked and now someone knows their corporate password, right? There are all these issues. So I agree with you, Bo, completely that if you have invested into rolling out a solution like Yubico correctly, successfully, it's time to retire password. So with that, I want to again thank you everyone for your time. We